T.I.'s son. So T.I. came out with the Instagram video a few days ago, basically asking, hey, stop reaching out to me about what my son is doing. Like, I know he's into some crazy stuff. In fact, I believe that if he stays on the path that he's currently on, he's going to go to jail. And I don't need y'all ask me about it. Whatever you are going to say, I should be doing about it. I've already said, done, and talked to all of his people and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. The way he framed this, it rubbed me the wrong way. But before I get into that, I'm curious, Hudson, what are your thoughts, man?
I mean, when I watched it, I said to myself, well, this like brought me to a similar situation with Biggie's daughter when we talked about her and how all these assumptions were made that that he that don't, nobody taught her right
Hmm.
and he he must not, why would you do that for a man that don't want to marry you and all that kind of mess. And I feel like a lot of these folk are just kind of flying off the handle with the accusations. I kind of think it's fair for him to say, why would you think I didn't talk to him?
Hmm.
I mean, you got people in there talking about, it's why he did, no, that's why you can't stop whooping your kids, or that's why you can't do this. I mean, he addressed that. He said, I didn't give him all the whoopings. I didn't did all this. And at some point, some people do just, you got to kind of let your kids go. So, they sometimes you just got to see, hey, sometimes they're going to do what they're going to do, and there's no stopping it. You kind of have to let them butt their heads on their own. So I think it was very fair what he said. And I think to have all those people in the peanut gallery, just kind of attacking as far as what he should do without, I mean, nobody knows him. They
Hmm.
don't know him. So how do they know he didn't do these things? So I think it was a fair video to say, I think he was real with it. It's kind of where I would have been in his position. Like, hey, whatever he did, look, I done already went through it with him. Now he's got to face the music.
Hmm. So I don't disagree with anything that you said. I think it's very irritating to have a bunch of people in your business trying to tell you about what kind of parent you should be and what you supposedly should be doing and all that kind of nonsense. So,
Well, you know what? I respect them for putting out the video,
hmm.
because I mean he could have just said, screw all y'all, I'm not
Hmm.
going to. But the life of a celebrity, you get all this
Right.
kind of criticism. So I respect them for even putting it out there, because
Addressing it.
I would have been like, forget y'all.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that part of it. What I have an issue with, and it's not really that he directly said it, it's just the feeling I got watching the video. I, I kind of feel like T.I. is not being real about how his son is a reflection of him and the way that he's lived his life. He's kind of making it seem like, oh, my son is going off the deep end, and I don't know why he's doing all that. And if he does this, he gonna go to prison and yada yada yada. And I'm like, there's no acknowledgement there that he's doing all this because he's emulating you. I mean, King was born 2 years after T.I. had his first hit album. Like, he came up right in the midst of when T.I. was at his highest and also his most ghetto. Let's keep it 1,000. Like, I understand we have this more mature, refined version of T.I. that for the most part doesn't get into trouble. I mean, some crazy stories came out about him, but it's nothing like having a whole arsenal up in your car that the police catch you with, right? So there's a
Mhm.
kind of a different version of T.I. now that is not the version King Harris grew up with. And I feel like the way T.I. addressed this doesn't really acknowledge that this boy is basically trying to be his father. And so that's part of the reason why I felt the need to talk about this, because You're right. People love being in the peanut gallery. They love throwing stones and telling folks what they should and should not do. But I feel like this situation is an opportunity for all fathers to look at themselves and say, what are the worst parts of me that I don't want my children to emulate? And really ask yourself the hard questions. Do I really need to work on changing these things to ensure I do not pass this down to my children? Like, there are some things about myself that I've decided, you know, I don't want to pass down, but they're also just my weaknesses. It's just not going to get any better. It just is what it is. But there are other things that I don't want to pass down that I've decided, no, I have a responsibility to work on this. Like, I feel like I have a responsibility to work on my weight, to be healthier, not only so I can be here for my daughter, but also so that, a lot of times when you heavy, your kids are heavy because they're emulating all your habits. They get comfortable with the same things you get comfortable with. And I feel like I have a responsibility not to do that to her, not to make her, 300 pounds when she's a teenager. And so, that's the way I felt looking at that. Like, you've got to be real with yourself about what do you want your children to see when they look at you, and what needs to change about yourself so that you're providing the best example you possibly can for your kids. And to me, looking at that video, I didn't get that sense from Ti. He is kind of like try to make it seem all outside of himself. Like, I don't know why he keeps doing it. Like, I've done everything I can. Like, bro, come on, man, be real, be real.
Well, I mean, I think I think when you talk about, setting examples for your kids,
Mhm.
it's near impossible to set the right example in all the instances, right? Because we're not perfect.
Absolutely.
But I would say, because King Harris was about 5 when Ti was sentenced for that bunch of guns in the trunk.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
he had to serve like a year and a day, which I don't know how much he actually served. I think it was federal time, so I think you have to serve like what 85% of that at least.
Hmm.
I don't quite remember that those type of specifics, but I what I often think about is how is it that we can be real about who we were but not glorify it?
Hmm.
So like when you mention weight, right? It's one thing to let your daughter see you because my daughter sees me eat a ton of cake, or she sees me eat a bunch of chips, right? And she sees this. It's a difference between I'm eating this stuff, and there's a difference between I'm glorifying it. So I'm taking this big old hunk of steak and going, "Oh, it's so good." Oh, I'm telling you, feels good. Slumping down on the couch, like, oh, this is good. Unbuckling the belt, like, yep, this is where I want to be right now, folks. So
Mhm.
there's a difference between I have a bad habit and I shouldn't have it, and I don't want my kids to have it, so I'm gonna try to talk them through it, as opposed to I have a bad habit and I'm glorifying it.
Mhm.
So if I was to make a comparison, I would make the comparison of Ti versus Jay Z.
Hmm.
So I think Jay Z is probably the perfect person to, when you think about it, you're not going to see him even back in 2008, 2007 when Ti got caught with those guns. Back then, you wasn't going to see Jay Z caught with no guns in the trunk.
Yeah, no.
And Jay Z, if you believe his music, believe the stories that's been told about him, he is
Mhm.
one he is one of the most hood dudes
Mhm.
that you can. I mean,
Mhm.
cooking on the stove, out there in the projects, middle of the
Right.
night, slinging to get that money to put that album out. But he put that side away,
Mhm.
and I'm willing to bet that if you just didn't know his background, didn't know anything, you would just think, oh, okay, the Jay Z is just an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Entrepreneur. You talk to him, you see him out, you don't get the sense of hood. Like you get the sense of a serious individual who's about his business. But you kind of see maybe there's like a 5% hood that you see there. But I struggle with that because I think that's just because I know what his background was. If
Right.
I had just met him today, didn't hear nothing else about him, it's just another businessman,
Right.
another entrepreneur. And I think that's the difference, right? I don't think Jay Z glorifies what he did.
Mhm.
And heck, we heard him on a verse of what God did. We heard him on that verse, and he talked all about it on that verse. It's like a 4-minute verse. He talked all about cooking on the stove and doing all that. He didn't glorify it. He
It's
did
just
not
part of his
glorify it.
history.
Now with Ti, you still see he seemed like that old uncle at the picnic who said, "Yeah, I work at the bank now, but boy, I
Back
was
in the
with
day.
I was with them hoes,
All right.
and you
I
know,
mean, he opened up the freaking trap museum. Like, come on now. This
yeah,
dude
yeah. I mean,
It's
so
all about it.
clearly, if I didn't know anything about Ti, anything about his background, I would immediately see him. I did this a nigga that got some money,
Mhm.
but he hood. He got some hood in him, and he certainly proved it when he got caught with all those guns in the trunk. Because I remember when it happened, and I remember thinking, "Don't he got people that could get caught with them guns for him? Why is he the one driving them guns around?
Mhm.
Why is he with the guns?" So ain't he even back then? I'm like, ain't he big enough to be separated from that?
Yep.
So, but I guess he wasn't. So,
Mhm. And now
so
his
yeah,
son trying to do the same thing.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's the difference. And I think what we're looking for, because none of us are perfect, like I said, I think what we're looking for is that Jay Z type of response
Mhm.
versus that Jay Z's kids probably gonna turn out like Will Smith's kids
Right.
and be and be nothing
Right.
like right and nothing like what Jay Z was. And I
Mhm.
think that's what Jay Z was going for. But I don't think was going for that. So yeah, you're right. He's got blinders on. He's not admitting to the example that he set for his son as the cause. That is the thing that he's not mentioning. It's not to say he doesn't behind closed doors say that, but that's doubtful. It's
And
doubtful. He
and
probably
and
just like you said.
and the reason why that really rubbed me the wrong way is because I feel like I see that in our communities all the time.
Yeah.
These older folks who point fingers at younger folks and
Yeah.
say they're not respectful the way we used to be, and they're not this and they're not that, with no acknowledgement how your influence is the reason why they're acting that way. You're trying to pretend that it's just some wild thing that happened outside of your home. No, it's because they were in your home that they
Yeah.
are acting the way that they are. And your inability to see that, to see that they're emulating you, for me, it's like it's very difficult to
Yeah.
watch that because it does not serve us. It does not serve us. It doesn't serve the child either. For you to try to pretend that they're not essentially an extension of you when they clearly are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a problem with taking responsibility all the way around when you talk to whether it's an absentee father who says, "Hey, I buy my son shoes and do this and do that,"
Mhm.
but he ain't showing up to any basketball games. He ain't taking the kids to school. He ain't doing none of that. He ain't making no lunches.
No.
So, but he's not going to claim to be the reason that his
Mhm.
kids end up in a tough spot if they end up there, right? He's not going to claim that. He's going to say that's the mother's fault. She raised him,
Right.
right? He gonna be quick to say
Right.
that then, right? He was
Mhm.
with his mama, so his mama should have handled that. So we have a problem with taking responsibility as parents. Heck, in our last episode, we talked about uh Tiffany Haddish and Ari Spears.
Mhm.
And I specifically said mother gotta take some blame in that. You don't let your kids with some comedians and film a skit, and you have no clue. You have no script. You
Right.
you you have
Got
no
no
one
clue what they're
there.
doing.
You have no one there advocating for the child at all. You just
Mhm.
have nothing. So you don't know what's going on, but you let your kid go there and film with these people. Who knows
Mhm.
what could have happened.
Yeah.
So and someone was in our comments on the YouTube channel saying, well, you putting all the blame on the mama. I said, no,
Mhm.
no, I'm just saying the only person not to blame in that situation was the child.
Right.
It was the only person in that situation not to blame.
Right.
We as parents have to understand that these kids are our responsibility. Period.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Period. And any way they turn out, that goes back to something we did.
Mhm.
And we can try to pretend we were perfect. Hey, even for those who say, hey, I don't know why my kid turned out this way. I had them in the best schools.
Mhm.
I had some money, so I never, they never had to struggle, never had to do this. So I don't know why they're doing that. It goes back to you in some way, some failure you had there. And
Uh,
we have to be able to open ourselves up to understand that we're not perfect. We're gonna
mhm.
fail, and the only way we get better is to acknowledge those failures and move forward.
Yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. Absolutely. And I hope, everyone who has children, but especially fathers, as fathers, we should
Mhm.
be thinking about, you know, when we all have weaknesses, and you
Yeah.
have to consider whether what impact those weaknesses are potentially going to have on your child.
Touch, touch. Say it.